Okay, I want to talk to you about graphing from Chapter 7 for your Math 110 class. This is number 41 on your study guide, and it asks you to label some points that are plotted. This is a Cartesian plane. We've got an x-axis that runs horizontal and a y-axis that runs vertically. We always list the x value first, kind of like you're doing a game of Battleship. You name the horizontal distance first and then the vertical distance. So label point A with an XY point. On the x-axis, it is over a positive 4. For the y-axis, it is at 0. So that is on the x-axis. Point B, x value is over 2. We label that first. Y value, it's down by 3, so we'll say negative 3. Point C, the x value is back 2, and the y value is neither up nor down, so it's at 0. Point D, the x value is over 1, y value is up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's a positive 6. Point E, the x value is back 1, so negative 1, and then up 2, positive 2. I should have put one in quadrant 3 here. Let's do that. Let's make a point F. So that's back 3 and down 3. That would be negative 3, negative 3. I want you to notice that there are 4 quadrants. Quadrant 1, we start here. Quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. It goes counterclockwise. In quadrant 1, the x and the y are positive, positive. In quadrant 2, the x value is negative and the y is positive. Quadrant 3, they're both negative. And quadrant 4, the x is positive, but the y is negative. Number 42 gives you a special case of a linear equation, just an x equals negative 5. So there's no y value. You might think of it as being 0y. So whatever you plug in for y, it's always 0, and x is negative 5. So x is forever negative 5, no matter what y value we pick. So it says plot a point that is a solution in the second quadrant. So x is always in the second, always on this side, negative 5. It's actually going to be a vertical line, just so you know, and this is review. So reading in the section, you should have discovered if it's x equals the special case of a vertical line with an undefined slope. If it's y equals, no x value, just y equals, it's a horizontal line which has a 0 slope. So we're expecting this x is negative 5 to be a vertical line. Now, it does ask us to plot a point that is a solution in the second quadrant. So there's lots to pick from. Second quadrant is this quadrant, you know. So pick some y value, say y is 3. At y is 3, x is negative 5. So you can plot the point, for example, y is 3, x is negative 5. Then it says plot something in the third quadrant. So this is our third quadrant. So let's pick y as, say, negative 2. X is always going to be negative 5, no matter what we put in for the y value. Then it says draw the line, so then it draws the line in, showing that it is vertical. And then a solution that's on the x-axis, so here's our x-axis, so it crosses the x-axis whenever y is 0. Still x is negative 5. X is forever negative 5, no matter what we plug in for y. If it bothers you just kind of memorizing that, you could think of this as being 0y plus x equals negative 5. Since y is absent, y is 0. So 0y plus x is negative 5. And then when you plot points, say you plug in a y value of 2, when you put a 2 in for the y, 0 times 2 is 0, so you have 0 plus x is negative 5, or x is negative 5. So no matter what you plug in for y, it zeroes it out, x is negative 5. Vertical line. Okay, the next problem, number 43. And this has a graph that has a slant to it, a different slope. Oh, and by the way, the slope was undefined. The vertical line slopes are always undefined. Okay, Okay, number 43, graph by point plotting. Y equals 3x minus 2. Now when it says by point plotting, that means you want to find some x, y solutions to this. So say we plug in x is 0, for example. Plugging in x is 0, we'll have y equals 3 times 0 minus 2, or y equals 3 times 0, 0 minus 2. Y is negative 2. So that's one of our points. So 0 for x, negative 2 for y. Plot that point. So you need another point. So let's plug something else in for x. Say 1. Do the process again. We could do this all day. Plug in different values for x. Y will be 3 times 1, 3, minus 2, or 1. So when x is 1, we got an output of y is 1. So over 1, up 1. And then you can connect those dots, and that should make the graph of your line. Okay, number 44 asks you to plot the intercepts. The intercepts are the zeros of the graph. When you plug in 0 for x, you get the y-intercept. 0 for y, you get the x-intercept. So 2 specific points. This one lets you plug in anything you want. Just 2 points. So in this time we want to plug in 0 for x, see what y is, and then plug in 0 for the y value and see what x is. When you make a t-table, you can plug in from either side. Plug in for the x all day long, anything you want to plug in, get some y outputs, or plug in for the y and get x outputs. You could do this infinite times. There's infinite solutions to a linear equation. So these are just sample ones, though, the intercepts. So plugging in 0 for x, 4 times 0 is 0. You could really just drop that out. The 0 minus 6y is just minus 6y. And then to solve this, we divide out by negative 6. Do you know, to get y alone, you need to divide by what it's multiplied by, negative 6. Divided by negative 6 is positive 1, so it cancels that out and makes it a positive 1y. We always want to divide by the same sign so that it cancels out and makes it positive. So negative 6 divided by negative 6 to get our y alone. Do the same thing to the other side to keep the balance. 12 divided by negative 6 is negative 2. So when x is 0, y is negative 2. Let's look at that on the graph. So 0x, negative 2y. Right there. Okay, now we need the other intercept. The x-intercept is found when y equals 0. So we'll start this over. Plug in y is 0. So 4x minus 6 times 0 equals 12. 6 times 0 wipes that out. Then divide out by 4. X is 3. So there, x-intercept is over 3 and then 0 for the y. Connect your dots. That's the graph of that line. 45. Find the slope of this line. Going through point 17 and 33. To find the slope given 2 points, you subtract the y's over subtract the x's. That gives you the rise over run. Slope is rise over run, which can be found by subtracting the y values over subtracting the x values. Now, it really doesn't matter which order you subtract in as long as you're consistent. Subtract in the same direction for the x's and the y's. Y's on top. So 7 minus 3 is 4 over 1 minus 3, negative 2. 4 divided by negative 2 is negative 2. The slope of that line is negative 2. If you follow the formula more specifically, it makes you think you need to do the second y minus your first y, which is fine. You will get the same answer. 3 minus 7, and then subtracting the x's, 3 minus 1. So that's negative 4 over 2. Divides out to be the same ratio. Negative 2 is your slope. Okay, 46. 46. Oh, you know, actually, this is the end of your Chapter 6 work. I said earlier you're doing Chapter 7, which is solving the system. So actually, you're just learning to graph still in Chapter 6. And then after this problem, we move to the solving the systems. Anyway, 46 says determine the equation